All right, I'm ready for it. You guys asked and I listened. You want to know more about French haircutting. I have been doing French haircutting for 22 years and I have some really awesome techniques for you. So I got a model together. Today we're going to be going over the foundations of a French haircut. That means we're going over terminology, the technique, your body stance, and the perimeter. We're even going to go into a framework a little bit in this video. So if that sounds good to you, keep watching. What's up guys, my name is Ambrosia Carey. I am a hairstylist, salon owner, and a marketing strategy expert in the beauty industry. I am sharing a lot of different tips on hairstyling techniques that I have developed over the last 22 years. And I also am gonna be covering salon growth and culture because let's face it, we need to have both of those equaled out in order to be truly successful in the salon industry. So I'll be teaching you French haircutting, lots of color techniques, and we're gonna be covering a lot of marketing strategies as well. Make sure you click that like and subscribe button and hit that bell so that you can get a notification on Wednesdays when we get a new video put up. Today, like I was mentioning to you, as promised, I'm going to be delivering the foundation of French haircutting. French haircutting, just to give you a little backstory, is working on the vertical. I'll tell you a little bit more in the video that you're about to see, but you'll notice the body stance with this. The reason why we cut on the vertical is because we are starting our sectioning from the top and we're working our way down. That means we always have a traveling guide. So no pinning and preparing and sectioning off ahead of time. We're going along the curvature of the head, so it's a softer flow. And the only thing that's cut horizontal is the perimeter itself. So what I like about this technique is we take larger sections with larger tools. We use a 6.5 to 7 inch shear. We use a longer, larger comb, and we're cutting the hair very much like fabric. Like think of it as like a seamstress at a fabric store. So we're measuring twice, cutting once. Larger sections, larger tools, and we're definitely doing a long pivots and points of rotation on the head, which I will be explaining in a little bit. So keep in mind when you're watching this is part 1 of 2. So make sure that you stay tuned because I will definitely be sharing the second part of the series.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Ambrosia Carey and welcome to my salon. I'm going to share with you a French hair cutting technique. And it's really quite simple once you get the hang of it, but it's very different than what we learn in school. French hair cutting technique is basically a very soft way of laying. It's very feminine. Everything's cut on the vertical minus the perimeter. And so that means that everything falls very soft. It's kind of like if we put vertical foils too. It's the same thing as like color placement. It would be the same concept for hair cutting placement. So we have 3 main lines that we're cutting in French. The first line is mesh. Mesh is a 90-degree angle. It's coming straight up from the head and it's cut exactly 90 degrees from that head. The second one is called exterior. Exterior means that the fingers are exiting the head, and depending on where your elbow is positioned, that changes your angle. And then the last line is interior. This is typically for your wedges and your stacks, and it happens more on the lower part of the head. You're gonna typically cut bobs or pixies or shorter when you're cutting interior, and this happens at the base of the head. So your fingers are pointing in toward the ground. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna show you our very first model. So this is Elisa. She has really beautiful, gorgeous hair, but what I'd like to do is give it a little bit more strength through the end. So it's been a while since she's had her last cut. So I'm looking right where that ribbon stops through here. So we're gonna kind of take about 2 inches off the bottom. That's gonna give her strength on the bottom. And then I'm gonna do a reverse exterior layer. What that's gonna do is give her a disconnected layer through here, and it's not gonna take away from the strength on the bottom. It's just gonna make her hair look thicker and fuller. And lastly, I'm going to give her some framework around her face. I'm shooting for the jawbone down, and that's also gonna give her that sense of movement. So just comb everything straight back and give it a little bit of a push and fan it out. And what it does is it just finds its part line for me, so that way I don't have to create a hard part. And on longer hair texture, what I do to section out is I typically will go either 1 or 2 finger widths behind the ear, depending on the density of your hair. Now, because her hair is not super dense, I'm just gonna go 1 fingertip behind the ear. So this is where I'm aiming right now. A little trick is that if you actually put your finger where you're aiming and you put your comb through the top, it will go right where your finger is. And I'm gonna go ahead and kick this out to the side, and I'm gonna move everything else to the back. Once again, I'm gonna put my finger just behind her ear, right through the top, guide it all the way down. It joins my finger, and then I divide it through. So for a French cut, we always stand when we're looking at the hair. Number 1, we want to see the hair eye level. If we're looking down on the hair, it's really hard to gauge like how we're making that line. Number 2, we want them to be standing with their shoulders square and their feet planted on the ground. A lot of times when clients are sitting in the chair, they're crossing their legs or they're sitting kind of wonky, and it makes it really hard for us to make a clean line. So of course I'm going to move the cape to the side for now so the buttons aren't in my way. I'm going to tip her head forward so I can get a nice clean line, and I'm starting everything in the center of the head, and I'm going to cut right above my hand. So I'm just going to give a nice clean cut there. Once again, I'm going to hold the hair and I'm aiming for this area here, so I'm just going to cut straight across and it's going to go right to that guide. And now I'm going to tip her head down just a little bit more. Here's 2 things that you can do. Number 1, you can bring the hair straight down and you can use their back. And you can see that there's a little bit of trash to clean up there to make it nice and straight. And number 2, you can divide it down the center, which I'm going to do now. And I'm going to part it and over direct everything toward her face. So now I'm going to turn her body, and I'm going to have her turn her head away from her. So again, I can cut as close to her body as possible. Her shoulders are not in the way. So I'm going to bring everything straight down to her body, and I'm going to follow my line. So you can kind of see right here where there's this garbage, the trash that needs to be cleaned up a little bit. So that's the stuff from underneath. So I'm going to just do that one more time and see if there's anything else, and we're good. Bring this out of the way now. Now I'm going to bring the rest of my perimeter in to the front. Everything goes straight down. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut underneath my hand now that I have my perimeter set. So now you can see she's got a nice clean line from the back to the front. So once I look for balance from side to side, I'll just reevaluate the front area. Sometimes I like to leave myself a little bit of wiggle room on the front. So what I'm going to do is do all of this in one cut. I'm going to hold the hair taut. I'm going to put the scissors facing straight down. So my elbow is right in the air, and then the inside of my shears are going to be where that guide is. So I'm going to go slightly below the chin. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to slowly glide. I'm never going to close my shears all the way. And I'm just holding the hair in my hand. So see how I'm just sliding my hand down that section, and I'm almost carving using the inside of my shears. So again, this action is happening like this, never closing the shears all the way. One last thing I like to check on hair for framework, just so it looks nice and strong when it's dry. I'm going to kick this hair out of the way, and this piece right here that falls out, so pull it away and see how this hair falls out here. I'm going to pull this away from the face. This is the stuff that supports the framework that's just behind it. And this actually looks pretty good. Sometimes this looks really fluttery and it can kind of look like little cobwebs, like it just wants to escape and just be sparse. And what I like to do is just go through and make sure that this is nice and strong again. So once again on this side, I'm just gonna bring everything straight to that hairline here, and I'm gonna pull this all away so that it doesn't distract me from the framework I'm trying to build. I'm gonna hold everything straight in my hand. Once again, I'm gonna open up my shears and I'm gonna make sure that the inside of my shears are just below her chin line. And I'm going to just slowly walk the scissors down and just rocking the scissors open and closed as I go all the way down that section. I'm going to bring out just the hairline and move the rest of the framework away. And I'm going to look at this and just make sure that this is nice and strong. There we go.
So now that you have a firm understanding of what the foundation looks like, how we're standing with the body, looking at an eye level, we stand for a couple different reasons. We stand because when someone's sitting in the chair, they can be crossing their legs or slouching, and we're also looking down on the head, and we don't really want to do that. We want to see eye level so we can look for balance and we can get it as close to the body as possible so that chair is not in the way. The other thing is we turn the head because we want to get their shoulder out of the way. If we're cutting over the shoulder, then we're over directing the hair. So if we turn their head and we cut close to their body, then we're not adding elevation. What does elevation do? It creates graduation, right? So a couple of other takeaways from the video, just as a recap. Definitely making sure that we're not closing the shear all the way as we're doing that framework. You want to cut from the inside of the shear, not at the very tip of the shear when you're doing framework. Otherwise, you will end up with some really blunt pieces and then you won't have that nice soft flow that we were talking about. Of course, the body positioning is really big, so we just want to make sure that we're always making sure that their chin is up when they're standing. And lastly, we want to make sure that when we are parting behind the ear and we're sectioning off, that if the hair is incredibly dense and thick, we can go right on top of the ear, but if the hair is fine in texture, we want to go 1 to 2 finger widths behind the ear. Hopefully these tips helped you guys out, and I'm looking forward to showing you the rest of the haircut, the layering. You can see just how elegant and how easy and effortless a haircut like this can be. Make sure you guys check in with me next week because I've got some really cool business strategies that I want to cover with you next time. And as always, in the show notes, I will have some other things available to you. One of them of which is a free course that's only available for the month of May. So if you're watching this after May, it may not be available, but go ahead and check that out. And the other thing I'm gonna drop in there is the podcast because that's absolutely free. You can binge listen to that. We do cover a lot of business strategies, marketing strategies, things that can help support and strengthen your business behind the chair. Hopefully you walked away with something valuable and that you're able to apply next time you go into the salon, and I will see you guys next week.